for a Disney movie, this PG-13, I would argue, goes pretty hard. You're looking at like decomposing corpses.
Oh. Hello, welcome to Guides the Unknown. I'm Kristen.
And I'm the dread pirate little brother William.
That's right. This week we are talking about Pirates of the Caribbean. The movie series, the ride.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Specifically, I think, also like focusing on some of the MacGuffin-y things of the first movie.
Yeah.
Curse of the Black Pearl, which is over 20 years old now.
Oh, really?
Came out in 2003.
Wow.
Isn't that kind of weird?
Yeah, it is weird. I'm surprised.
Now, I already gave you a little preview before we started recording. I looked up way too much stuff.
Yeah.
I might even just leave my notes alone because I know I can just sort of like...
Sure.
Well, we'll see.
Uh-huh.
But I want to start in the classic style.
Yes.
What's your history with Pirates of the Caribbean?
Well, I'm realizing right now, William, that I meant to watch Pirates of the Caribbean.
That's fine.
And I got completely sidetracked last night. I said like, oh, we're going to watch Pirates of the Caribbean last night. What the hell did I do? I don't know what I did. But anyway, my history with, and it was not necessary for what I was doing for this, so it's not a big deal.
Yeah.
But anyway, my history with it is that I've definitely seen the first one. I've seen some of the sequels. I feel neutral to good about Pirates of the Caribbean.
Interesting.
In general. And I love the ride at Disney.
I know. I love that ride.
Yeah.
It's interesting. I love Pirates of the Caribbean more than I would even think I do.
I think that I've learned throughout the show, it seems like you really do enjoy like nautical sort of horror and stuff.
I do.
Yeah.
I love anything where it's like, this is so dopey, but like even just like stonework by the sea. Anything that looks like it's like, you know, windswept or stones that have been rounded by the water, weathered, old wooden boards that are sort of like beginning to warp.
We talked about this in the episode like a month or a couple months ago that was about beachy stuff, like boardwalks and beach stuff.
Yeah.
You were like, I don't know how to say this. I like the look of wood by the beach or something like that. Yeah,
I do.
Yeah. No, it is a good look.
I don't know what to say of it.
Like driftwood. I mean, this is it's a look. If you go to any Home Goods, you're going to find driftwood home accents.
Is that right?
Oh, yeah.
Well, then I'm going to Home Goods or whatever. I'll see you at Marshall's.
Yeah.
I really like the Pirates of the Caribbean series. And it's interesting because, I don't know, for a multitude of reasons, I feel like these movies like sort of like fell out of good graces. Or just got like mediocre or something. Or people just stopped caring.
Yeah.
But they were genuinely like a phenomena.
Right.
Like 20 years ago. People were, I mean, completely insane with Pirates of the Caribbean fever.
Yeah.
And
I do remember them being like super popular.
Does it remain the only Disney ride that successfully became a film franchise? Somehow even the Haunted Mansion has not really been adapted well.
No, not really.
I mean, I haven't seen that most recent movie, but...
I saw it. It was okay. I didn't love it. It was okay. Yeah, I think maybe it is. There was Jungle Cruise.
Yeah, they tried to do that with The Rock.
I actually think I saw that, or maybe just
Did you really?
I think I watched part of it or something. I think it probably is the most successful ride adaptation.
Very unusual. It's
which actually, now think about it, is not that surprising. Like, it's not like, oh, ride adaptation, that's gonna be a slam dunk.
Well, that's what I mean.
Yeah,
that's what I mean. Is that like they've tried and it doesn't work, and you're almost like, right? It makes sense for adapting a ride into a movie not to work.
Yeah,
which is why it's actually kind of weird that there are 5 Pirates of the Caribbean movies that have all made their money back and been successful. And especially this first one became like a cultural touch point. Yeah. Everybody knew who Jack Sparrow was.
Definitely.
There were endless, videos of people doing the Jack Sparrow walk. I remember this one dude.
What if that's part of why? Is because there was such a character to glom onto?
Yeah, he was like a Deadpool-ish, like fun guy to play. It's fun to talk like that.
Right.
So I think just like Deadpool people just go like, oh, oops. Oh, I'm sorry. And it's like fun to talk like that. Yeah. I think Jack Sparrow was a similar thing for people where they were like, it's kind of amusing to wiggle your fingers around and sway when you're walking.
So savvy.
That's
like all I remember.
Yeah. It just like, and it's to everybody else, you're like, ew. But it's like fun to do it, you know? But yeah, these movies like exploded and I was man, I was right there. I
Yeah.
rewatched. Part of the reason why we're doing this episode is because I just felt like watching a Pirates movie.
Yeah.
Because I do like, I don't know. It's the tail end of summer. Something about you couldn't call them summer movies, but there's something about them to me where it's like,
Well, I wonder if it's like, I don't know, summer water.
yeah, maybe.
kind of thing.
Yeah, I don't know. There is a vibe to them that seemed to be fitting. And so I started with the fourth and fifth because my logic was like, well, if I start with the quote unquote bad ones and then I wrap around to start over from the first one,
Then
it's
you're
going to feel like
ending
a
on a
step
high.
up in quality.
Yeah.
And turned out to be a good way to do it. The fourth and fifth ones are fine if you don't have anything to compare them to.
Right.
But then we talked about it, and I was like, listen, I think the Pirates of the Caribbean movies have a lot of horror lore to them, and even like pirate lore. Jack Sparrow is chasing after the Black Pearl. That's his former ship, and it's become a ghost ship.
Yeah.
There's a whole thing in this first movie about cursed Aztec gold. Is there any real-life analog to the cursed Aztec gold or the Isla de Muerta, the island of the dead, where it is stored?
Yeah.
And even Jack Sparrow himself, like, what is the origin point for creating the character of Jack Sparrow? Like, is there a real-life folklore that drove the story engine of them writing this movie, which is an adventuring comedy movie with total horror undertones, ghosts and zombies and curses.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I feel like there's potential for, if we enjoy this enough, to, like, not all the time, but like maybe periodically pluck a Pirates of the Caribbean movie and look into the pirate lore behind these things. Because even going back and watching the first one, like, something that's fun to me is also that, like, the characters in the movie, the pirates themselves, are really superstitious.
Yeah.
Like, it's not uncommon across all of these movies for even just some side character to be like, oh, it's bad luck to have a woman on board a ship.
Yeah.
And you're like, you pirate, you're scared of bad luck or this antiquated notion of just having a woman on the ship is a risk?
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's like the pirates themselves are kind of scared of the unknown.
Well, I guess, I mean, if you're going to be out on the sea, which is so dangerous and you're so out of control, superstitions are a way to take back some control in a way. Like, you are avoiding something or moving towards something, and that's supposed to shift your luck in one direction or another.
No, that's a great
maybe
point.
That sort of influences that.
You're just floating around on the big open ocean. Literally anything could happen.
You're lost in the drink.
But if you convince yourself that, like, hey, as long as we don't have a woman on board, we're safer.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, that's nonsense. But in your head, you're like, no, I've just improved our chances.
Yeah,
you're right.
psychologically, you're kind of helping yourself out.
Yeah, exactly. That's interesting. That's a great point. So yeah, I think there's plenty to talk about with Pirates of the Caribbean. And yeah, my fondness for this series is surprising. Even Johnny Depp himself.
You should get yourself a little pirate hat. I think that'd be nice.
No.
William, you should be a pirate for Halloween.
How quickly can
I would love to see you in pirate regalia.
How quickly?
This sounds great to me now. No, you can't talk yet. This sounds great to me now. You should be a pirate for Halloween. All like frilly cuffs and stuff. This is
like
great.
Classic pirate, like a Captain Hook pirate?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Yeah,
It can be a little ragged, but yeah.
Eye patch.
Yeah, and like a tri-corner hat sort of thing.
I could go to Party City real quick and get one of those little party favor pirate hats. Jaunty sitting on the top of my head to the side.
No, I want like a good one. I want a good one, like a crushed velvet hat.
Yeah, all right, sure. Listen, I'm not against that at all. I will say...
Did you have plans for Halloween yet with Zoe and stuff?
Oh, she wants to be Elsa again.
I thought so.
Yeah, so that means I'm Kristoff
Do you think she could
again.
pivot from
No,
Kristoff? I don't think so
You
either.
think I can change Zoe's mind?
I don't,
You really
but-
think that I can sway her?
I don't.
No, she's
Yeah.
headstrong.
It's my girl.
I did take her for a walk along the river after watching
yeah.
Pirates of the Caribbean. So we were looking out at the water and looking at driftwood and looking
Were
at
you yearning for the water?
I was yearning for the sea, and she really got a kick out of it too. She
Yeah.
liked going out to the riverbank, and we saw an old guy fishing who was telling us about how he fishes and
Cool.
telling us tall tales of like someone caught a huge cod in the Raritan River.
Yeah.
I'm like, there's no way. Oh, and then interesting.
No, people fish there a lot. They
I
must
know.
be doing it for a reason.
And then he was like, let's see what I got, because he felt a nibble on the end of his line. And he goes, I've either got a fish or the crabs came up and just ate my bait.
Yeah.
And so he reeled it in. And I guess crabs will just leap up and nibble on the end of your fish hook and then float back down. And yeah, a sneaky, nasty crab had just eaten whatever
sucks.
piece of cheese he put on the end of his fish hook. So he had nothing.
That's a Kraft single gone.
Yeah. I'm a Kraft single down.
Yeah.
This sucks ass. Man, I said sucks ass so much last week.
I know.
I know.
listened to last week, and yeah, you did.
I got a pot.
I like it.
I gotta wash my mouth out.
I
with
like
soup.
sucks ass. I think it's funny.
All right. Well, let's talk about Pirates of the Caribbean. You've got some of the ride, I believe.
Yes, I do.
I've
I
got-
have mostly the ride.
That's fine, because
Yeah.
the ride itself is a whole thing. We'll
Yep.
probably start with that. But before we do that, listen, don't pirate this thing, okay?
Can they?
Well, you could technically officially pirate it if you go to patreon.com/GTTUpod. You can skip the next...
Oh, yeah, I guess that is pirating.
You
yeah.
can skip the following ad break.
Yes.
If you back us starting at the $4 tier on Patreon. That's officially pirating.
Is it? Because they're paying us. It doesn't feel like
But they're
pirating.
paying us tribute, just like the pirates in the fifth Pirates of the
suppose.
Caribbean movie to Jack Sparrow.
Well, by all means, then pirate it.
when he murders Javier Bardem. so check it out, patreon.com/GTTUpod, and you won't have to sit through this commercial break.
Okay, so I'm going to tell you about the ride. I want to do that, but I honestly want you to talk a little bit about a special pirate boy.
Oh, we got a pirate boy coming, everybody. Pirate
Yeah.
sailing the seven seas.
Yeah.
So we had a baby shower this past weekend, baby sprinkle, a little shower, for baby brother.
Yeah.
Who's, I mean, imminent.
Yeah.
Within a month, it seems. So, and thank you so much to Chrissy
Yes.
for helping put it all together.
Of course.
And at the baby shower, we took Zoe aside and said, Zoe, do you want to know baby brother's name? And so we told baby brother's name to Zoe, and then we made an announcement and asked Zoe to tell the entire room, all our friends and family, what baby brother's name is. And so she went, Jack,
Yeah.
because we've got Jack on the way.
Yay.
Zoe and Jack. Zoe and her little brother,
Cutie.
Jack.
I love it.
And what's fun is, and it's stupid, and it's, 10 years ago or more, a long time ago, Allie and I talked about, hey, if we have kids, what should the names be? And somehow we landed on Jack like right away.
Yeah.
I don't even know why. There is not because of this Jack. It just felt Jack Rogers.
Yeah.
Felt sturdy. But then over the course of 15 years, I've also been like, we didn't know Zoe's name. Like, that was a real discovery thing. But like, I would think like Allie and Will and Jack. And then when we had Zoe, it was like Allie, Will, Zoe, Jack. Like, it feels good. And then I just started being like, Jack-o'-lantern and Will-o'-the-Wisp. Like, I was just like, I
that's
like,
cute.
they're like these
Yeah.
like Will and Jack playing together just feels like these like names that have been used as placeholders almost.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? But you sort of make of it what you can.
Yeah.
And I like that. But then I was watching Pirates of the Caribbean, which is all about Will Turner and Jack Sparrow.
Oh.
And I was like, two pirates going on adventures together or something.
Oh, that's so cute, William.
But also, 15 years ago, we had told all of you, like, hey, if we ever have a boy, we're going to name him Jack.
Yeah.
And in my head, I'm like, no one will remember this. We won't want to build up suspense about what the name will be. So for the last year, everyone's been like, so it's Jack, right?
Yeah.
And we were like, God damn it. And so even the announcement fell
Well, maybe
flat.
not a year.
And then it
but-
turns out that back in April, when we posted our baby announcement, I showed it to Allie's cousins on my phone, and they saw that the baby announcement on my phone was titled Jack.png. So like, what? How many ways could we possibly sabotage ourselves? Or specifically, how many ways could I sabotage us?
Right,
But
right.
yes, Jack.
I wish I had seen that Jack.png. I mean, I knew
Jack
it.
is coming.
But just not having the confirmation was driving me nuts.
I know.
Because you did say, he tried to throw me off, and he did a little bit. He was like, well, we're not totally sure. We're thinking of some other names. He like wouldn't really tell
We
me.
explored, because we were
Yeah.
like, oh, we made up our mind 15 years ago. Wouldn't
Yeah.
it be worth exploring alternatives?
Right. So I was like, so maybe it's not. I mean,
We
I
always
don't
came
know.
back
But it was
to
driving
Jack.
me nuts.
Yeah. Zoe and Jack, everybody.
Yeah. Do you have a middle name?
Palmer.
Okay, cool.
Same middle name as Zoe.
Yeah. Excellent.
Yeah, Allie's last name, yeah.
Excellent.
And you're a sneaky pirate yourself.
I tried to. Well,
Let's not, let's not gloss over your shenanigans.
I tried to.
This is how much a piece of shit my big sister is. My whole
dying to
my
know.
whole life, you have been trying to psychologically game systems or manipulate me. It's disgusting. And now it's trickled down to my children. Because before the
It won't
party,
stop.
well, tell the people what you did.
Well, it wasn't before the party. It was at the party.
It was at the party?
Yeah. So I knew that they were going to announce it at the party. It just felt like something that they would do.
It was too much of a season finale of baby stuff. Yeah.
Exactly. So I was dying to know, and I was like, so they're going to do it at the party, and they're going to do it with Zoe. So, maybe Zoe knows now that we're at the party. And so I was hanging out with Zoe. And I said, hey, Zoe, what's baby brother's name?
That is so underhanded that really everybody out there, consider how far ahead Kristen thinks. Like this, then that, then this, then that, then this, then that. Therefore, Zoe probably knows.
Is it underhanded or is it smart?
It's both. It's both. You've got to be the worst pirate I've ever seen. To quote Pirates of the Caribbean: Curse of the Black Pearl.
Oh God, I wish it was the same word. You know how
it's very clever.
You know how there's that interview?
It's very clever.
With Meghan Markle and Prince Harry, where Oprah goes, were you silent or were you silenced? Oh. I wish that that related in this situation.
So you just brought up some superfluous bullshit. Zoe did not know the name when you asked her.
Well, that's because you guys were smart and didn't tell her.
We didn't tell her yet.
Smart.
If you tell Zoe, honestly, if you tell a 3.5-year-old the secret's out.
To tell you the truth, I was asking, but I was like, she probably doesn't know actually yet. But just in case. No.
We told her about 3 minutes before she announced it to the room.
I figured, but I was like, just in case somehow they told her already. I said, what's baby brother's name? And she said, Cheese Puff.
It's like, too clever. Anyway. Pirates of the Caribbean.
Yes, Pirates of the Caribbean. I've been dying to know. Perhaps some of you out there in Radio Land have been curious. So just in case this had been preying on any of your minds the way I've been preying on mine, I wanted to give you this relief.
Jack.
As soon as I possibly could. Jack, he's the Lego maniac.
He's on the horizon.
It's time, baby. Yep. He's almost here.
He's going to have that awesome shirt. I was also thinking about that. You know, that viral video of that kid who microwaves a glow stick and it explodes in his face. His dad comes in and goes, God, what'd you do, Jack? I was like, that's going to be me. Look at that. It exploded on that awesome shirt. Dad, my eyes.
That video's awesome.
I'm trying to read the instructions, you ding-a-ling. This is happening in 13 years from now, me and Jack.
Oh, God.
All right.
Oh, it's awesome.
Apologies.
No. Oh, God. Okay. So, Pirates of the Caribbean, the original ride. Here's the deal with it. So, we wanted to talk about that because it's the basis for the movies. The movies have all this spooky stuff in them. And so, did any of that come from the ride? Is there any sort of connective tissue? Why are you looking at me like this?
I'm listening to you.
All right.
I also despise you.
You still thinking about me trying to get the name out of Zoe?
No, I was thinking about that kid who exploded that glow stick in his own face, to be honest. I was just on another planet imagining that video.
Oh, God. All right. Now I understand that completely. Anyway, so the ride actually was originally conceived of not as like a water dark ride. It was supposed to be a walk-through wax museum. Did you know that?
No, I did not.
I had no idea about this. So they decided to change that because they realized that the capacity of a walkthrough like that is much more limited than it would be as a ride. And they figured that out because they had rides at the World's Fair in 1964, or attractions at the World's Fair in 1964 that kind of acted as like an A/B test. At the World's Fair, they had a walkable wax museum. I guess it's kind of like two. They had the Carousel of Progress and Moments with Mr. Lincoln, which are two walkthroughs. Yeah. Sound like a real hoot.
I can't wait to bring the kids to the Carousel of Progress.
Yeah, and Moments with Mr. Lincoln.
How about Moments with anyone else? Moments with Mickey Mouse. Wouldn't that be kind of neat?
I know. I mean, they must have wanted to show off their animatronic technology or whatever, like they have in the Hall of Presidents now.
You know that they're making an animatronic Walt Disney now? Did you hear this?
No.
This was like literally in the last 2 weeks they announced this. They're going to have a Moments with Mr. Lincoln type attraction with Walt Disney himself.
That's weird.
Doesn't that feel like some sort of necromancy?
Yes, it does. It sounds sick.
You started this company and now you're just a toy.
Yeah, no,
you're a toy in it.
There's something strange about it.
There's
I know
something
that
sick.
on the surface, you're like, well, it could be the same. I mean, what's the difference between that and the Hall of Presence? But I don't know.
Something
It's
weird.
like idol worship to have that in Disneyland.
Something about it feels gross. I can't even really put my finger on it. It'll probably be fine. It'll probably be really interesting.
I'm sure.
But there is something weird about like just being like, you used to work here and now you.
Well, he created it.
I know, but now it's like now your corpse like is trapped.
Yes.
You know, like,
forever.
It's so weird.
It's-
I heard they're going to use his real body.
Well, they have the head. It's frozen, so they can just pop that thing out of the deep freeze and get it talking.
They got to put it in the microwave on thaw for a little while.
That takes a while.
Yeah.
It's fine. So they had those, and then they had a water ride, which was the debut of Small World, and they realized that people were moving way faster through Small World than they were through the Carousel of Progress and Moments with Mr. Lincoln. It's probably because they were falling asleep in there.
Yeah, exactly.
And they decided to make Pirates of the Caribbean a ride like that, which also makes sense because pirates are water-based creatures.
Yes, it makes a lot more sense.
When they realized that, they were probably like, yes,
Right.
we will do that.
This is a good idea, I guess.
The original plans for the statues and scenes were also quite a bit darker than they ended up being. And one of the most memorable freaky figures was known as the Helmsman, which is an awesome name. I love that. And it was a skeleton at a ship's wheel wearing a little hat. So I saw 2 pieces of concept art.
How little was this hat? Could barely see it.
In one of the things, it was pretty damn little.
Yeah.
And the other one, it was a little bit bigger. When I say one of the things, I saw 2 pieces of concept art, and one was a little bit jokey where it was like a skeleton at the big wheel and there was a pirate looking at him all like freaked out. It was like a little cartoon. And then another drawing was definitely scarier. It was like darker. It looked like the skeleton was wearing probably like pieces of his clothes that had
tattered.
Yeah, tattered, and they were like blowing in the wind. It was awesome, honestly. And it makes sense because when it was going to be a walkthrough attraction, it was going to have kind of a haunted house vibe. And a lot of the Imagineers who worked on Pirates of the Caribbean also worked on the Haunted Mansion. So there might have been some kind of cross-pollination going on there.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, it's really neat. But it retained a couple of those like unsettling elements, even when they changed over to being a water ride, especially with the skeleton crew and the burning town. Even though there are a lot of comedic touches throughout, there's still some things where it's like, this is weird if you think about it.
Dark.
Yeah. So let's talk about that skeleton crew. This is kind of the nickname for the dead skeletal pirates that are kind of scattered around through scenes and grouped together. So that's weird and scary in and of itself, that they're like, that's something that, you know, as grown-ups, you're just like, oh, okay, there's skeletons around, whatever. But, you know, for kids, if you think about it, that's scary to have kids on a ride and see skeletons. What?
We took Zoe on this ride when she was like
Yeah.
2.
Yeah.
Maybe like 1.5 or 2. 2,
Yeah.
I think. Yeah. Yeah. It was a mistake. You know what? She was young enough that she didn't grasp it.
Right. Yeah, I think it was probably the sweet spot.
But old enough that it was like, I forgot that there was a plummet. There was like a drop you go down.
Yeah.
And I remembered about 4 seconds before it happened. I literally in the boat went, oh, let's hold on to each other. Like we were like, I tried to make it normal.
Yeah.
Just be like, anticipate something, Zoe. It's going to be silly and fun. And then
Right.
like your stomach falls. Like,
Yeah.
it was, yeah.
Did she notice the skeletons and stuff?
Oh, definitely.
Did she say anything or?
You know, she never talked about that as much as she ended up talking about the Haunted Mansion, which
Yes.
we also took her on.
Yes.
So
I remember her loving the Haunted Mansion.
Haunted Mansion is so scary.
Haunted Mansion. She always wanted to watch, well, because I put it on, but then she was into it. Like walkthroughs of the Haunted Mansion or like ride-throughs.
Yeah.
She'd be like, more Haunted Mansion.
Yeah. She like that, but yeah, I think she'd be old enough that it would register more and it would be scarier.
It's like how she used to love Moana. And then she just recently, like, she was a little bit freaked out by Moana because she gets it. And she was proud that she watched it.
She was very
like
proud
all the
of
way
herself.
through. But she had watched it as a little kid like a million times because she didn't understand it.
Yeah. Yeah. Once you understand and the fear gets in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally. But yeah, so there were like skeletons all over the place in Pirates of the Caribbean, just scattered through scenes. But at one point, they were all real human skeletons. Did you know that?
Wait, like originally they were
No, they actually were.
This is not an urban legend? Do you have this confirmed?
Yes. When I came across this, I assumed that it was an urban legend.
Yeah, of course.
No, it's actually not.
That's awesome. That's crazy.
I was so surprised by this.
That's crazy.
Yes. So the Imagineers who were working on all the figures for this felt that their skeleton figures or whatever were not up to snuff, that they looked too artificial. So they contacted UCLA and asked for some cadavers to use in the ride, and they obliged. So they were the bones of people who had donated their bodies to like science or something.
Now that is as disturbing potentially as that is.
Yeah.
It's also kind of cool, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I've heard this before. I mean, very famously, Poltergeist.
Yes.
Had the real dead bodies in the pool. That, what's her name? I can't remember the actress's name.
Oh,
but
it's like Deborah. I don't remember.
They didn't know.
Yes.
She didn't know that she was going to be hugging real corpses in that dirty bath water.
No.
It's like, I heard that, and this makes sense as well. But when you think of it for 5 seconds, you're like, that doesn't make sense. And then you think about it a little bit longer, you're like, oh, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
It's cheaper to get a real body than to get a fake body.
Yeah.
Because the fake bodies are they're growing like weeds.
Yeah.
People die all the time.
Bodies.
The real bodies, are like, it's like plucking a flower out of the ground. But the fake bodies, you got to mold it, you got to build it, you got to ship it, you got to articulate it.
It's not going to look as good as the real bodies anyway.
So get the real bodies.
I was very surprised.
That's crazy.
I didn't expect that at all. So technology has now improved, and they have replaced those skeletons with fakies. Or have they?
Is that an improvement?
Well, who knows? I guess in the minds of some people, you know what I mean? Like maybe it's just conceptually
just wrong.
Yeah. Well, because also, I mean, I didn't honestly think about this until we're talking about it. If those people donate their bodies to science, does this fall under that purview? Like, they didn't intend for their bones to end up in Disneyland.
Yeah.
Like, how cool is this?
I'm a scientist.
Right. I don't know. So rumors abound that there are still parts of real people all over the ride, that some of these things haven't been replaced. And here are the ones that people say are still real bones and body parts if you go on the ride to look out for. People said there are 2 skulls on a small island right after the second waterfall, and a whole torso trapped under a beam in a burning jailhouse. So even just saying that is like, oh yeah, this ride is freaky.
This ride's awesome.
There are people who cite extra details on the inside of the skull around the nose and small holes in the skulls as evidence that these are the real ones, because this is actual bone, organic material that is eroding, and that's the tell for them being real.
Cool.
People say, I think this is the most famous one, I kept coming across this, that a skull and crossbones decorating the headboard of an ornate bed that a skeleton pirate that's sleeping in, wearing a sleeping cap, is a real skull. People say that this one was too hard to like dismount from that headboard. Yep. So it's a real one.
This is the one that I've heard. I've heard that that skull and crossbones is a real skull.
Yeah.
And I've also heard people say that it's Walt Disney, like or that he's buried underneath the ride. Like there are all kinds of urban myths like that.
Yep.
Why would it be too hard to pull a skull off of a thing and replace it?
Or why wouldn't you just replace the whole headboard?
Exactly. Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
It just like the reasoning behind it is so flimsy that you're like, no, I just don't believe it.
Totally. But I mean, I don't know. Maybe it is. I don't know. Maybe they keep it for the mystique. Maybe they kind of like that people say these sorts of things.
Oh, I'm sure.
And that you can like go through the ride and like look and see that and be like, oh my God, you're right. With this one, people say you'll notice that it's darker and more aged than the rest of the skeletons. And so having something like that for people to spot and be like, oh my God, I saw it, is an asset.
Yeah, no, I definitely think that Disney on some level, even if they wouldn't verbally confirm this, I think that there is an appreciation for the urban legends, the mythologizing of their stuff. And again, my theory is the one of the dirty little secrets about all kids stuff, especially Disney, who are like the juggernauts of this, is that horror is in all of it.
Oh, yeah.
Horror is part of the whole bit. So I don't think that they would shy away from people coming up with their own spooky interpretations of stuff.
Yeah, I definitely think that, like, that's part of what makes anything compelling. I, divert from that opinion a little bit that you would call all of it horror, but I think that there has to be at least some sort of, like, underlying
threat.
Yes.
Tension.
To everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. So now let's talk about that burning town that you reach. It's pretty chaotic and dark. It's really, really awesome.
It's so good.
It's so sweet. But if you're thinking about it from this lens of being like, all right, let's look at the elements of this that kind of have like shades of horror or scary things, this is a big one in the Pirates of the Caribbean ride, because everything else as you're getting up to this is pretty much like, yo-ho, yo-ho, a pirate's life for me, and just sort of like mischievous and just sort of like, oh, these guys are scamps. At least today, the original ride had some extremely jacked up premises and parts. There's a YouTube video where somebody basically like spliced things together to recreate what the original ride was like. It's in the show notes, just sort of as like a historical document. Like even in the description of the video, they're like, I'm not making a judgment. I'm not saying this is great. I wish it was like this.
This is what it was.
Right. There was like an auction where they're auctioning off women by the pound.
Yep. And
like a pirate chasing a woman and like harassing her and like just, uncool, shitty stuff in it or whatever. But so, now I will say most of the ride is just sort of like pirates being pirates, like doing, stealing stuff or whatever. And then you get to this and it's like a town on fire and real destruction has been caused to people's lives. And it's like, it's been all fun and games until you see the fallout of these pirates' actions and smell the fallout, because there's like a certain smell that's piped in this section that's like very notable. So they have made some additions to Pirates of the Caribbean, besides like the subtractions I was just talking about, additions because of the success of the movies that have added additional creepy scenes and elements to the rides. So Jack Sparrow pops up here and there. That's not creepy, but it's something that they've done, worth mentioning. But there's a ghostly waterfall now where they first projected Davy Jones's face, which is Bill Nighy, and now they project Blackbeard's face, who is Ian McShane.
They do?
Yes.
That's weird. Bill Nighy has remained the more iconic, the Davy Jones, the tentacle beard, octopus face. I
just realized I didn't make a note of this. I don't know why I didn't. I read that they alternate. Or something.
That's strange.
Like there's some places that have Bill Nighy. There's some places that have Ian McShane.
Ian McShane's great.
I guess they like just kind of pick and choose to honor them both or something.
Okay. I mean, they've got them. May as well alternate.
Totally.
But that's odd to me.
Yeah. And this is just kind of like a fun fact about Ian McShane showing up to shoot his... It's not even really a scene, I don't think. I think it's really just his face. But shoot himself for the projections for the waterfall. Walt Disney, this is a quote from something in the show notes. Walt Disney Imagineering writer Michael Sprout was on hand to direct the special shoot with Ian McShane. He said, quote, McShane came in wearing his complete Blackbeard costume, including the sword, saying it helped him stay in character. So he showed up really needing to be shot from like the chest up, and he came in like with the sword and like clanking into the room or whatever, because he needed to be in character. And I saw like a picture of it. It's really just like his head just being like,
that's interesting.
Which is really fun, I think.
That is fun. I think there's something about these pirate characters that people really enjoy. Because Johnny Depp has... there are like varying stories about him keeping his Jack Sparrow costume like in his car. I know that Johnny Depp is Johnny Depp, and there's a lot to be said about the guy. But he also did go to like a bunch of kids' hospitals as Jack Sparrow and try to entertain people, or just show up at Disney wearing the costume. And then he did a bunch of other shit too.
Oh yeah.
But like I think that there is some allure to being the pirate or the icon status or the playfulness or something that people seem to really have latched onto. Yeah.
No, totally. So now let's talk extremely briefly, because I really couldn't find anything about this, about the decision to make the movies supernatural themed.
Yeah, I was curious about this because like the ride itself is not explicitly supernatural. I mean, I guess there is that skeleton at the wheel and the talking skull and crossbones.
Which they didn't even keep. That was something that was in the original plans.
Okay.
That they didn't actually have in the ride.
Yeah, I was wondering if there was like any sort of like, who was like, you know what, let's make a paranormal movie out of this. Yeah.
I don't know. I could only find things that were just very matter of fact, where it'd be like the director being like, so it has a supernatural angle, but nothing that was saying like, because yada, yada, yada. So the only thing that I can really think of, and this is just me hypothesizing, and I don't think it's anything that's particularly like brilliant, is that it sets it apart from other pirate movies. It's kind of giving it its own particular angle.
Yeah, I think that is a good point. I think that up until like the 2000s, first of all, I can't even think about when there had been a pirate movie before that.
I don't know,
Waterworld.
It is a thing.
It's a thing.
But like a long time ago.
I know.
The Pirates of Penzance.
Yeah, I guess.
They had to set themselves apart.
Muppet Treasure Island.
Yeah.
But like, you always think about the pirates that talk like this.
Right.
And to be fair, that also happens in the movie.
Yes.
But like, Jack Sparrow really was like a reinvention of how you could interpret a pirate as like dried out in the sun and kind of crazed.
Yeah.
Like he lost his mind. Like he's missing some marbles, you know?
Yeah.
And so I think that even the paranormal angle was a way to say like, this ain't your grandpa's pirate movie.
Yeah.
This has a different sort of energy. And again, I come back to the notion of like myths and folklore and pirate superstition, which I do believe to have been a real thing. Like real pirates really were like, there's buried treasure on that island.
Right. Because we have covered, I don't even know when, I'm only thinking of this right now. We've covered, like maritime horror or something the episode might be called. And yeah, there is like real pirate superstition. There are there's myths around whatever it's called, like the front of a ship or whatever, where it'd be like a mermaid.
Right, yeah.
That's at the helm of a ship. So that was the other thing that I was thinking, is that they kind of took that idea of superstition and lore around parts of a pirate ship and sort of expanded on that.
I think so. And I think
also the idea of like the Kraken, like that even like, I didn't watch it, but I did read that the Kraken even just shows up very briefly in this first movie.
Does it?
That's what I read.
Oh, that's interesting. I don't know. Maybe there's like
I said,
a nudge or something.
Yeah.
I think it's Ted Elliott and Terry Rossio, I believe, are the screenwriters. And like it turned out to be a rich vein for storytelling.
Yeah.
Like there is so much to pull from that for sure. Like over the course of 5 movies, you can pick up different little things. Like it starts with like cursed treasure and blah, blah, blah. And by the end, you've got ships
even the idea of cursed treasure.
Yeah, cursed treasure. You've got ships in bottles that are like magically, like the Black Pearl, Johnny Depp's ship, by the final movie has been trapped in a bottle. And it's like they just found little icons of ship stuff or sea stuff or ocean lore or folklore. And I really think they did a good job of sprinkling different folklore across 5 movies.
Yeah.
In a way that did convince me that there's room for more, by the way. It turned out to be a very clever approach, I think, to make Pirates of the Caribbean: The Ride into a paranormal story.
Yeah, totally. So we are going to talk a little bit more about that movie specifically. You're going to go into the MacGuffin of it, all that kind of stuff, after we tell you about patreon.com/GTTUpod. This is where you can go to get our whole second weekly podcast called The Netherworld Dispatch. It comes out on every single Monday, so you can bookend your week with Guides to the Unknown. Every Monday and every Friday we have a show. And if you join us at the Demon tier over on Patreon, you can get that extra show. We also have a number of different tiers where you can get the show at different increments depending on what you're comfortable deciding to pledge with us. And we have a bunch of other stuff on Patreon too. You get to join our Discord when you join the Patreon. You get ad-free episodes, as we said in the beginning. We have commentary tracks for all of the Twilight movies, all the Scream movies, the Blair Witch movies. There's all kinds of stuff over there.
Ghost Adventures.
Yes.
Yep. It's super fun. It's where we go to be free. It's our 7 C's.
That's right.
The world can be our oyster. And if you enable us, if you would like to become one of our enablers by backing us, you can encourage us to keep up all this poor behavior and keep the spooky party going.
How do you feel about that?
The most recent episode of the Netherworld Dispatch is episode 175, titled Become the Boy.
Become the Boy.
I am proud of this episode.
It's good.
This is arguably a finale of sorts.
Yeah.
We took a look at, I had been keeping this folder of stuff a decade and a half ago. I started keeping a track of all the scary stories that I liked online, and also keeping track of all the scary stories that I thought were so bad they were good. And so Kristen and I played a game. We would read each other a story, and then we'd have to guess, did I think that this was a good story or a bad story 15 years ago? And we finished all the bad stories.
I know.
There are no more.
There's some really good, really fun bad stories.
And it genuinely culminates with the best of the bad stories.
Oh, yeah.
So go check that out. Creepypastas and Crappypastas, everybody. Episode 175, Become the Boy. And that is to say that if you sign up for any of the tiers that get access to the Netherworld Dispatch, you're going to get access to that catalog of 175 shows. You unlock it all, stretching back years. So go check it out. We also love reading reviews that people have left for us. And so I've got a new one for you, Chrissy, that comes to us from Mrs. Badger, who says, one of my favorites, and it's a shorty and a sweetie.
Great.
The topics are great. The sibling banter is a joy, and I highly recommend. 5 stars.
Thank you so much. I love that.
Thank you, Mrs.
That's
Badger.
all we need. Thank you very much, Mrs. Badger. Thank you to everybody who leaves us a review. It means a ton. If you haven't done it yet, we would love it if you did, and Will might read it on the show. If you like the show and you think a friend might like it, we would love it if you texted an episode to a friend. Anything you can do to help spread the word or help other people check out the show, we appreciate so much. So thank you.
Thank you all. And I also want to shout this out because Kristen and I are doing the Rare Live show.
Yes.
We are going to be doing a fairly mini podcast, I would say, like a half show.
Half hour.
Yeah, a half show. On October 25th, 2024 at Pino's in Highland Park, New Jersey, one of our favorite places.
Yeah.
That's where the baby shower was.
That's right.
We're going to be part of the Run Rabbit Run show. This is a buddy of mine, Anthony Walker, who every Halloween does a show. He's got a band. They do I think it's like a Pink Floyd covers, and it's just fun.
Yeah.
Good Halloween fun. But we're going to be opening the show.
Yep.
Doing a little guide to the unknown where we're going to talk about the Monster Mash. So if you're in the area, you want to come out to a fun Halloween show, hang out at a cool place, Pino's, they got pizza, they got drinks, they got a little arcade, check out, stay for the great music. I love Anthony Walker's music. And see us, make sure you do that. That's October 25th, 2024, 7 p.m. Come see us, come hang out, have a good Halloween spooky fun time.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so there's one last thing that we have to do. We got to pay the piper.
That's right.
And then I'm going to tell you about the Curse of the Black Pearl.
Oh, my God.
After this commercial break.
Do tell.
Okay. So, The Curse of the Black Pearl, like I said, it's a 2003 movie directed by Gore Verbinski. And yes, I was right. It was written by Ted Elliott and Terry Rossio. I think that the entire story could be summarized thusly. I think a lot of people know it, to be fair.
Yeah.
You've got Keira Knightley and Orlando Bloom and Johnny Depp and Jeffrey Rush on this big pirate adventure. And it seems like it's going to be all about Elizabeth Swann, Keira Knightley, is like, oh my God, these pirates are invading my home of Port Royal. But then it turns out that the pirates have something else going on. When they step into the moonlight, they become revealed for what they really are, walking corpses.
Yeah.
So literally there's this the standout hero shot of the movie is Jeffrey Rush, who's been trying to convince Elizabeth Turner that this gold she's got is cursed and they need to take it from her to lift the curse. She's like, I gave up believing in ghost stories a long time ago, Captain Barbossa. And he steps forward into the moonlight, and in frame, his face decomposes to reveal his skeleton face. And he says, You'd best start believing in ghost stories. You're in one. And that, man, there are like a million and one things that I would point to this movie for doing that I think are not just good, they're great.
Yeah.
And I think that's a big one of them.
I mean,
this
that sounds
like
sweet.
very declarative statement of like, this is paranormal.
Yeah.
We're fully going for it. And for the remainder of the movie from that point, many of the characters that we've seen, like their eyeballs are popping out of their heads, their bones are jangling, and like it really, for 2003, this was incredible as a special effect. This is less than a decade after Jurassic Park.
Yeah.
And you've got a whole crew of undead pirates that they're jumping in and out of moonlight, so they're going from fully formed flesh to decomposed in the blink of an eye and
That is
back
cool.
again. It is so much fun. There is such a playful energy to the whole thing. And listen, he's John Depp, but he is still the standout figure of the movie.
Yeah.
The way that Johnny Depp's character is introduced, and this will get into some of the gnarly real life pirate stuff. The introduction of Jack Sparrow is that he is on a boat. He's standing like basically like at the crow's nest. You know what that is? Like at the top of the ship. He's like standing up there and looking noble. They're piping in the like sort of exciting, triumphant Pirates of the Caribbean music.
Yeah.
And he's staring out at the horizon, really, or looking at Port Royal as he comes in, just standing at the top of his ship. And he looks over and he sees that there's a sign. There's this like, oh man, and this is just what I love too, like a rocky outcrop sticking out of the water.
Yeah.
It's like a rock archway.
Yeah.
And hanging from the arch are 3 pirate corpses strung up by the neck.
Ooh.
And there's a sign that says like, pirates be warned. Port Royal doesn't mess with pirates. If they catch you, they're going to hang you. They're going to execute you. And I looked it up, and this was a very real thing. Johnny Depp takes his hat off almost to like, you know, in honor of
the dead pirates.
the dead pirates. And,
Yeah.
you know, he's potentially marching to that kind of fate.
Yeah.
I found out not only did they publicly execute pirates, in the movie, you could almost call it tame. And worth pointing out, for a Disney movie, this PG-13, I would argue, goes pretty hard. You're looking at like decomposing corpses.
Oh,
The other
that
thing,
does sound hard. Wait, why is he going there?
so John Depp is on this grand mission to get his real ship back. It's worth pointing out that as he comes in, he's standing at the top of that ship because it's actually a really teeny tiny ship, and it's gradually sinking.
Yeah.
So by the time that he gets to the dock, he's
Yeah.
able to step off the top of the ship
can
right
picture that.
onto
Yeah.
onto the ground.
Yeah.
It's like, it's wonderful. They signal in like one fell swoop that this is our hero pirate and that he's, you know, on the,
Yeah, he's
at the rock bottom right now.
Right.
His ship is literally sinking into the water as he pulls in.
Yeah.
So what his big adventure is, he's coming to Port Royal to steal another ship.
okay.
I get the impression that Jack Sparrow's life is this like cycle of like, I plunder and loot and steal and kill, and then I enjoy my treasure until it runs out,
yeah.
and then I have to go do that again.
Yeah.
And so he's at the start of his loop.
Gotcha.
But he's unaware that Elizabeth Swann has this pirate medallion. She thinks it's a medallion. It's really a piece of cursed Aztec gold. And she's made to wear a corset, and she's like, her dad gifts it to her. And he's like, it's all the rage in France.
Yeah.
And as they're stringing her up and like someone's like shoving their foot in her back to tie the laces tighter on the corset, she's like, I guess people in France have learned not to breathe.
Yeah.
And she ends up passing out and falling off a rock wall into the water. And as soon as that medallion touches the water, it like, boom, 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 it reverberates a signal. And that is what brings the undead pirates to Port Royal, merging everyone's fates all together.
Cool.
And the medallion really belonged to Orlando Bloom, who is the son of one of the cursed pirates.
Okay.
So that's how all of this sort of intersects.
Yeah.
But I want to get back to the idea of hanging.
I'm so sorry.
Yes.
You're saying everybody's stories intersects. What's going on with Orlando Bloom at this point?
At this point, Orlando Bloom, there was like a cold open where Elizabeth Swann was on a ship.
Yeah.
And her dad's like the I don't know, king of Port Royal. I don't know the power structure.
He's the boss.
He's the boss of Port Royal. And she's on this boat and she's like 13 and a man named Mr. Norrington who is clearly a grown man in his like 30s.
Yeah.
And later, for the rest of the movie, is her romantic interest.
That's supposed to be Orlando Bloom?
No. They come across a shipwreck and there's a boy floating on just like floating stuff.
Yeah.
And he has the medallion. That's Kid Orlando Bloom.
Okay.
But she's like, if they find out this kid's a pirate because he has this medallion, they'll kill him. So she takes the medallion.
Oh, okay.
And he doesn't know that she's had it all this time. As they grow up, he learns to be a blacksmith and
does he just like live in the town?
yeah,
with her?
and
Okay,
he's considered to be like a serf. He's like a lower dude.
Okay.
This Commodore Norrington guy eventually is like asking Elizabeth Swann to marry him.
Yeah.
Even though it's like, ew, you've known her since she was like a teenager? Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, Orlando Bloom becomes the real love interest.
Gotcha.
By the end. So, this pirate hanging thing, in real life, it's even worse. Hanging is one thing, and they did that all the time. But I found out about something called gibbeting.
Sounds good.
This is
actually
crazy.
It does sound. It sounds cute.
You want to gibbet?
It must not be.
Well, check this out. Gibbeting is the use of a gallows-type structure from which the dead or dying bodies of criminals were hanged on public display to deter other existing or potential criminals. There were objections that these displays offended foreign visitors and did not uphold the reputation of the law, though the scenes even became gruesome tourist attractions. So here's an example of Captain Kidd, a real-life pirate, who was being gibbeted. He was, I think in this case, he was already dead.
Yeah.
But he was literally strung up with like irons clasped around his entire body, just hung out on display. And he would remain that way for weeks as his body gradually decomposed.
That's horrible.
Gibbeting.
Wait, so I might have missed it.
There's a new
Is he
term
already
for you.
dead?
I think Captain Kidd, the real-life pirate in the 1700s, he was already dead at this point. But sometimes they weren't already dead. Sometimes people who were being gibbeted, criminals or pirates in this case, would be put in like a cage, like a bird cage.
Yeah.
And left there to starve and die gradually. And it was a tourist attraction.
That's insane.
So people would be like, you want to go see that guy who's being gibbeted right now?
Ay, ay, ay.
So in this PG-13 Disney adventure movie, the strung up by their neck corpses of decomposing pirates is rooted in historical fact.
Yeah. Oof.
Fascinating. And
people say that gawking at reality TV is so bad.
I know.
It's no gibbeting.
It's no gibbeting. 300 years ago, we had a different kind of reality television.
That's right.
So it turns out, I was looking into Jack Sparrow's origin as well, and they're like pirates that he was said to be based on just for his sort of like adventuring ways or whatever. But the big one that people always point to Jack Sparrow being based on is Keith Richards of the Rolling Stones.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I was
what?
expecting you to say a pirate.
Oh, the dread pirate Keith Richards. No, because he brought this like supposed like rock star vibe to everything. But also his daughter Lily Rose Depp was 3 at the time, and so he was watching a lot of cartoons with her. So there's a lot of like Tex Avery, Wile E. Coyote, Bugs Bunny type stuff going on in there. He's an animator.
Oh, okay. Okay. Again, I shouldn't have any expectations. You know what happens when you assume. I thought Tex Avery was a cartoon that I didn't know about.
Oh, no. He also does sound like a pirate, too. Tex Avery. But somebody pointed out, and people were really salty about this one. Keith Richards as like the rock star go-to is one thing. But there are a lot of people online who are like, you should know that Johnny Depp didn't even invent Jack Sparrow. He stole the character entirely from Adam Ant.
Oh, yeah. I have seen something like this. Well, I mean...
Style-wise, sure.
Yeah.
I would say that Jack Sparrow, Adam Ant was, I guess, a pop star more than anything.
Oh, yeah, Goody Two-Shoes.
Oh, okay. I know. Yeah, I know Goody Two-Shoes. This was from a music video called Stand and Deliver. And he plays a highwayman, which is almost like a pirate on land. Who would like rob your stagecoach.
Yeah.
But he's got the tri-cornered hat, and he's got dangling bits in his hair, and he is like dancing and kind of like swoopy, whatever the hell.
Yeah.
I can see that. It's like a 2-minute long music video.
Yeah.
And then Johnny Depp expanded that into a 2-hour-long movie.
It doesn't seem like something worth getting worked up over.
I completely agree. I think the similarities are undeniable.
Yeah.
But it's not as if Adam Ant like played a whole character.
No.
There's 2 minutes in existence of this. Johnny Depp created a whole other vibe. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's fine, but it is worth pointing out.
Sure.
I will agree with that. But so as I mentioned, the entire rest of the movie is around this MacGuffin. Well, debatable.
Yeah.
For Jack Sparrow, the MacGuffin might be his beloved Black Pearl, which it turns out he's got this whole backstory that I also find very charming. He used to be the captain of the Black Pearl.
Right.
Until his mutinous first mate, Hector Barbosa,
Oh, no.
took over the ship because Johnny Depp knew where the Aztec gold was. And Hector Barbosa goes like, well, then why don't you tell me? And so as soon as Johnny Depp said, here's where we're going to find the treasure at the Isla de Muerta, here's how you get there, then Barbosa led the crew to oust Jack. They abandoned him on a desert island.
Mutinous.
They left him with a pistol that only had one shot in it, intended for himself.
Yep.
But somehow Jack got off that island, and he's been saving that shot ever since for Barbosa.
Aha.
But not only that, which
Sounds like a good movie.
Kristen, it is so good.
I know. It sounds good.
I wish you had seen it.
Maybe I'll watch it.
I want to know I genuinely want to know
yeah.
your thoughts. It's great, and I'm going to spoil it all for you.
That's fine.
Okay.
That's fine.
And then Barbosa, the next irony, is like, well, that's one less way we have to split the gold. Jack's out, not realizing that the gold would curse him, for all time. So here's what happened to those pirates: they go to the Isla de Muerta, where they find this lost gold, this cursed gold, which I also have some in-movie backstory of. It was all about Cortez and the Aztecs. In 1519, the Aztecs delivered to Cortez a stone chest containing 882 identical pieces of Aztec gold as blood money to appease his slaughter. Stop killing us, Cortez, and you can have this money.
Yeah.
When Cortez refused to stop his conquest, the heathen gods placed a curse upon the treasure so that anyone who took even one coin from the chest would become undead skeletons. And so that's why the treasure is cursed.
Yeah.
So now Barbosa and his crew take the gold, they party, they spend all that gold before they realize that they're cursed.
Yeah.
And not only that, there's this one guy, Bootstrap Bill Turner, who's like, we shouldn't have done that to Jack. And Barbosa is so offended that one of his own pirates would stand up against him, he straps him to a cannon and blasts him into the sea, sending him down to Davy Jones' locker.
Surely he straps into a cannonball or something, right?
They say strapped to a cannon. Yeah, I don't know. He might have just been sitting on top of the cannon. They're like, well, that didn't work.
Yeah, right.
Throw him into the water.
Right.
But that only after they exploded Bootstrap Bill did they realize how to undo the curse. They have to find all 882 pieces, and they all have to make a blood sacrifice of themselves. But now they don't have Bootstrap Bill's blood. So they've been looking for his one remaining piece of gold, which he sent off with his child, and whoever the child is who carries the blood of Bootstrap Bill.
Aha. Yeah.
And so the rest of the movie for them, the MacGuffin is the gold or the child, I guess.
So can you just say what a MacGuffin is?
I can, Kristen. Thank you for asking. Bing, bing, bing.
Ew, don't touch me with your dirty eye pencil or whatever it's called. Apple pencil.
Eye pencil. Do you like my eyeshadow? I'm going for a Jack Sparrow or J.D. Vance vibe. Whoever. Here's what a MacGuffin is. Because I think we've used this word a lot, but I was real curious for this as to like, what is this thing?
Right.
And this is cool. So a MacGuffin is like sort of like an old Hollywood kind of term for just the thing that the whole movie swirls around. We gotta get the gold.
Yeah.
And it's like, is the gold really important, or is the adventure going on around it more important? Sort of the adventure going on around it is more important.
Yeah.
Indiana Jones can be chasing anything. The adventure is the thing.
Yep.
The whatever he's chasing is sort of irrelevant. That's what a MacGuffin is.
Yes.
But where did the term come from? And this is fun. So, it was coined by Angus MacPhail, who was a British screenwriter who worked a lot with Alfred Hitchcock. It has been posited, so no one really knows for sure, that the word guff is like trivial, worthless, and then maybe just was playful. A MacGuffin.
Yeah.
A worthless thing.
Yeah.
And then everyone goes crazy trying to chase it.
Fun.
It was then popularized by Angus MacPhail's good buddy, Alfred Hitchcock, who even just started to lecture about screenwriting and his use of MacGuffins in his own stories with the following tale. He told this to Columbia University in 1939. It might be a Scottish name, MacGuffin, taken from a story about two men on a train. One man says, "What's that package up there in the baggage rack?" And the other answers, oh, that's a MacGuffin. The first one asks, what's a MacGuffin? Well, the other man says, it's an apparatus for trapping lions in the Scottish Highlands. The first man says, but there are no lions in the Scottish Highlands. And the other man answers, well, then that's no MacGuffin.
Okay.
So you see that a MacGuffin is actually nothing at all. Mm-hmm. It's a contradiction.
Yeah.
We got to get it. But it doesn't really matter what it is.
Right.
But
it's like a means to an end.
A means to an end, yeah, totally. And so it's become just like George Lucas used it a lot as well. Mm-hmm. It still isn't used today. People have even said like going way back to Greek myth, like Hercules going after the Golden Fleece. That was a MacGuffin.
Yeah.
It didn't really matter. Mm-hmm. Just go on the adventure.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
But I also found this. Also importantly, people always point to the Maltese Falcon, which was a 1930s movie, as a good example of an early MacGuffin. It was like, we got to get this treasure thing, or whatever. But even before that, this is fun. The World War I era actress Pearl White used a different term. She called anything that the characters were chasing, it was known as a weenie.
Okay.
And I think it's time to bring it back.
I like that, yeah. It's the weenie of this movie.
It's been 100
yada,
years.
Yada, yada. Yeah.
And I think it's time for everyone to be chasing the weenie again.
I do too.
The next Pirates of the Caribbean should have a cool weenie that they got to chase.
Yeah, I think so too.
I love it.
The pirates and the
stupid,
dastardly weenie.
Stupid little weenie.
Yeah.
So I looked into the Aztec gold. Mm-hmm. In real life, there sort of have been cursed. I was like, where did they pull this from?
Yeah.
Sort of the only thing that I found, or the thing that I kept getting routed back to, was King Tut's tomb.
Okay.
Like a concept of like cursed
Funky Tut.
treasure. Funky Tut.
Yeah.
Buried with a donkey.
Yeah.
Otherwise, my searches for Aztec gold or cursed treasure or whatever would often bring me back to Pirates of the Caribbean.
Uh-huh.
So I'm not really... I gotta admit, I'm not 1,000% sure.
Yeah.
But I did find this that was kind of fun. So the treasure was lost to the Isla de Muerta, the island of the dead, which is an island you can't find unless you already know where it is.
Okay.
That's what they say in the movie, which is the kind of like odd wordplay or something that like I really appreciate.
Yeah.
Like it's how can you know where it is if you don't know how to get there? Yeah. And how can you get there if you don't know where it is? Mm-hmm. You have to already know. I like that. They do that a lot in these movies. Maybe it goes into overdrive in some of the later ones, but I like it.
Yeah.
So it's said in sort of like, I guess, extended material or early drafts that the Isla de Muerta might have just been a regular place. But since the treasure has been there, this cursed treasure, gradually the island itself has been cursed.
That's cool.
And I found out about a real cursed island. The Charles Island
Staten?
curse.
Long?
The Charles...
I wouldn't say so.
No, of course not. No. But it is closer than you'd think, this cursed island. The Charles Island curse, which, is just off the coast of Connecticut?
Okay.
Less than an hour from where we grew up.
We must go to there.
Which also had Gallows Hill Road.
I know. It was the weirdest town.
Did we grow up in a pirate place? Like,
oh, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know.
So check this out. I already talked about Captain Kidd, who ended up getting gibbeted in that cage. But the pirate Captain Kidd was said to have cursed Charles Island in 1699 during his last voyage. It is his treasure that is said to be buried there, still to this day, Kristen.
Oh my God.
In 1721, a third hex was placed upon the spot, supposedly by Mexican Emperor Guatmosin, whose riches were stolen and allegedly hidden there by sailors. In 1852, treasure hunters did find a chest, but when they opened it, they were greeted by a flaming skull, and were then either executed by spirits or spent the rest of their lives in an insane asylum.
Whoa.
So, Kristen, there's a cursed island like a couple hours away from us.
Whoa.
Right now. Charles Island.
Well, let's go.
There could be treasure on Charles Island.
Gather your things.
Now, we may have to... We could probably stay closer to home, too, by the way. Listen to this. Captain Kidd is also said to have buried treasure on the Rahway River.
Oh.
In New Jersey.
Okay.
Kidd...
it's like a hop, skip, and a...
It's in New Jersey across the Arthur Kill from Staten Island.
Okay.
Whatever that means. Does that make sense to you?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, there's treasure all around us. This Captain Kidd. I ended up looking into Captain Kidd himself because I was like,
Yeah, what
what's
was this guy up to? Why was he burying treasure all over the place?
It's kind of cool. He was a Scottish privateer. He later settled in. He came to New York City, and then he captured his greatest prize in 1698, the 400-ton Quegdag Merchant, which I guess is the name of a ship. But so he was like, he did all this stuff all the time, but then all of a sudden they say the political climate in England turned against him, and he was denounced as a pirate. So for much of his life, he wasn't considered a pirate.
Yeah.
He was doing work on behalf of the government, I guess. But then I guess he did one thing too far or annoyed the wrong people.
Those do seem like they would be that they wouldn't work with each other, that you'd be working for the government and a pirate.
It doesn't seem right. I know.
They seem in contrast.
And amusingly, in later Pirates movies, Captain Barbossa ends up operating as a privateer. And I'm like, I never knew what that meant. But then looking at Captain Kidd, I'm like, oh my God, there's like a way to do piratey stuff. But if you're doing it for the government, it's sanctioned.
Yeah, right.
And you're probably paying a percentage up the chain. But then if you piss off the wrong people, they can go, he's going rogue, he's a pirate now.
Yeah.
And what happens to pirates, Kristen?
They get what was it, gibbeted?
And gibbeted.
Yeah.
They grab you right by the giblets,
Right.
put you in that cage.
Oh my God.
So he gets declared a pirate. And so he is forced to stand trial in London, found guilty and hanged in 1701. Now this was almost amusing, but in a grim way.
Yeah.
Captain Kidd had 2 lawyers to assist in his defense. However, the money that they'd set aside for his defense was misplaced until right before the trial started.
Was it misplaced or was it buried?
I know. Yeah, exactly. They buried it on and on. That's what these people are constantly
it's buried
doing.
in raw way.
Do you do this ever? You earn a little money, so you bury it in the ground?
Immediately bury it?
Yeah.
No.
So he had no legal counsel until the morning the trial started.
Oh my God.
And only had enough time for one quick conversation with his lawyers.
So stressful. That sounds like a stress dream.
He was shocked to learn at his trial that he was charged with murder. He didn't know that until the
Yeah,
trial.
'cause he didn't have a lawyer. Tell him.
He was found guilty of all charges and sentenced to death. He was hanged in a public execution on the 23rd of May, 1701, at Execution Dock in London.
God.
He had to be hanged twice. On the first attempt, the hangman's rope broke, and Captain Kidd survived. Although some in the crowd called for Kidd's release, claiming the breaking of the rope was a sign from God, Kidd was hanged again minutes later and died. His body was gibbeted over the River Thames in Tilbury Point as a warning to future would-be pirates for 3 years. I got it wrong before. 3 years. Kidd's remains were
gnarly.
They were either buried on the riverbank where he was executed, or more probably taken for the ignominious process of public
Ignominious?
ignominious.
Oh no, I don't know that word.
Process of public dissection by surgeons, a common fate for executed persons. Captain Kidd.
Good Lord.
Real pirate.
And they say the pirates are animals.
They do.
Look what they do.
Look at what they've turned us into.
Right.
Look at what's becoming of us.
Right.
So to wrap up Pirates of the Caribbean, though, because now I talked about sort of like the real life stuff, but the movie itself remains, dips in the extreme.
Yeah.
It rules. One of my favorite things that happens, and I'm debating whether or not to save it as a secret for you, is, do you want me to spoil it?
Yeah, it's
You're fine with this? It's so good.
Yeah.
The entire time, nobody knows what Jack Sparrow's doing.
Yeah.
He's playing both sides. Is he on his own team? What's he doing here? He seems like he's friends with Orlando Bloom and Keira Knightley, but then sometimes he seems like he's friends with Barbossa. He's been saving that one shot for Barbossa. And Barbossa also has these great monologues about what it's like to be undead. And he's like, for years now, 10 years, I haven't felt the wind on me face. Like, he can't feel. Being dead means he can't...
I like that kind of pirate talk.
I love it.
Yeah.
And he can't experience any pleasurable sensation. Food doesn't make him feel satisfied. He's been hungry for 10 years. So returning this gold and getting the blood means like a return to normality.
Yeah.
In a way. And so they have this big grandiose fight at the end where Jack is like stabbing Captain Barbossa, even though it doesn't work. He's undead. And finally, Captain Barbossa stabs Jack with the sword. And you're like, oh my God, Johnny Depp loses.
Yeah.
Except Jack Sparrow is a tricky one, and he stumbles back into a beam of moonlight and turns into a zombie. He's snuck a piece of that gold for himself for the final fight because it effectively makes you immortal.
Oh,
and so in this movie, you get to see the hero
very tricksy
become a monster. And there's just something also to me so like the iconography or the branding or the something. There's something so cool about seeing the hero look like the monster.
Yeah, that is cool.
There's something very satisfying in that. And then he's like, the zombie Jack Sparrow is like rolling the gold coin across his fingers. And going like, I just couldn't help
Which
myself.
are bone fingers, I would imagine.
Bone fingers.
Yeah.
And then finally, throughout all of this fighting, whatever, he slices his own hand at one point and gets his blood on a coin, throws it to Orlando Bloom. As Captain Barbosa's like, oh no, they're lifting the curse right now in front of me in the middle of the fight.
Yeah.
I could be in mortal peril. And before Orlando Bloom even drops his own coin and undoes the curse, you hear a gunshot. And they look back and Johnny Depp is just standing there having pointed his gun. And there's the contrast of seriousness and silliness is perfect in the first movie where like Johnny Depp, this clearly is meaningful. Like he's not goofing around anymore. He just shot Captain Barbosa in the heart.
Yeah.
And Captain Barbosa looks down. He's like, you wasted your shot. Like the curse isn't lifted yet.
Yeah.
But it turns out
I bet he didn't.
He didn't waste it. Orlando Bloom ends the curse. And because they're standing away from the moonlight.
Yeah.
He's not Bone Man. There's a hole in his body.
Yeah.
And so when the curse is lifted, that hole starts bleeding.
Yeah.
And Johnny Depp did it. He killed the bad guy. But there's like a somber quality or the playfulness, the fun adventure becomes interestingly intimate and somber. Where for Jack, it's like this is the culmination of 10 years of pain.
Yeah, he's not like happy that he did this. Yeah.
And then Captain Barbosa, seeing that he's bleeding, he looks up and he goes, I feel cold. And he falls back dead. There is a wonderful walking of the tightrope of contrast of silliness and fun. And seriousness and scares. I genuinely appreciate it all.
Sounds really good.
It's so well handled and so well done and so oddly emotional at the end to see the bad guy get defeated. And it's something that will have ramifications in future movies, which I think is appropriate. Like sequels operate best if like they're a reaction to the trauma of the previous stories. It is wonderful. And the entire movie ends with Jack Sparrow about to be hanged when he's finally able to actually run free, and everyone sort of agrees like we'll let him get away this time.
Nice.
He deserves to be hanged, but he also just did a lot of good work. We'll turn a blind eye. He gets 10 minutes of a head start.
Oh, nice. Okay.
And it ends with Jack Sparrow like on his pirate ship. Finally he's back on his ship. He took it back from Barbosa. He's got the Black Pearl, his MacGuffin. And he goes, bring me that horizon. And they smash to credits, and you just feel like you've watched a fun adventure. Like you leave the movie with this, or at least I did. This energetic sort of like optimism or something. I really love it. I know I'm really evangelizing for it, but I really love this movie.
I hope by not having watched it and probably watching more Veep that I'm acting as an audience surrogate because it sounds really good to me.
It is wonderful. I think it really is a wonderful movie. And there's going to be a decline in the quality. Well, I don't know when we'll talk about it again or anything, but I would like to, because like even in future movies, there are other MacGuffins or bits of folklore that I think are worth
maybe we can consolidate some of the future movies.
Yeah, that's true too.
Really good.
I definitely think we can consolidate the next two into one episode. They're so long, but it's a two-parter. It's like, but so I just love it. And there is not the least reason for which is that there is a heaping dose of this like urban legendy folklore that sort of drives the story or at least augments it.
Yeah, that is super cool.
Pirates of the Caribbean.
Great. Awesome. Well, thank you very much, everybody, for listening. We hope that you enjoyed that. As we said before, you can go to patreon.com/GTTUpod if you'd like to help support the show and get tons of stuff in return, including our whole second podcast. You can also follow us on social media at GTTUpod, which is where we post about new episodes coming out, and we also let you know when we are going live. You can also follow us on social media. I am at Chillin' Kristen.
I am at The Myth Traveler. So thank you all so much for hanging out. Please consider getting on your calendar that date for when we're going to be doing that live show at Pino's, October 25th, 7 p.m., Pino's, Highland Park, New Jersey. We're going to talk about the Monster Mash.
Yeah, it's a concert that we are opening for.
Yeah, which I think that Allie, when I was telling her about it, I showed her like the poster that Anthony made where it's like got our name with like cool musician stuff.
Yeah, totally.
And Allie just went, that's cool. Like what you're doing is cool. Like it occurred to her for the first time in years that what I'm doing is kind of cool.
It's cool.
So no, I'm stoked about it. October 25th, 7 p.m. Pino's. Come see us, everybody. It'd be great to see people in person.
Yeah, totally.
I will be like approaching the tail end of like a paternity leave of sorts at that point. It'll be interesting.
Yeah.
Thank you, everybody, so much for hanging out with us. Please let us know what you think about Pirates of the Caribbean. I'm on a real kick right now, greatly enjoying it. But otherwise, we'll be back next week for something completely different. Who the hell knows what that could possibly be?
I can't imagine, except that I can, because we're going to do celebrity ghost stories.
Oh, that's right.
Oh, yeah.
Hell yeah. And until that time comes, we're gonna travel.
Back to the netherworld we go. So I switched it up a little bit because you did.
Savvy.
Match the freewheeling energy.
Where's the coffee? Savvy. See, I think it's funny that like Johnny Depp, Jack Sparrow, really reinvented the pirate. Where like, I wonder if future pirate movies can't even be made because everyone wants this or something.
Yeah, right.
Like everyone thought Johnny Depp was like, what the hell are you doing? Yeah. And then people loved it.
Oh yeah.
Right? But like,
yeah, like that's what a pirate is now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, in Hot Fuzz.
Well, except there is that show, Our Flag Means Death, which like people love.
Oh, really?
Like it got canceled and people were pissed.
Oh.
And that was more just like regular pirate-y.
I don't even know.
But it's like a comedy.
Yeah.
Or
I
like a
remember in
dramedy,
Hot Fuzz where there's that obnoxious theater couple that puts on Romeo and Juliet, but it's the Baz Luhrmann Romeo and Juliet. Like I just like to imagine theater people like chasing this, having to do this forever.
Yeah,
or something.
right. That's really funny.
Change the world.
Well, there are still like, I mean, he's that, but there are still, you know, Barbosa's like.
He's pretty piratey.
Well, no, but like he's more like
traditionally piratey.
So
yeah,
there are still those in there.
And there are people with like peg legs to come in the franchise and stuff.
So
They're really
they're still in there.
They did it all.
Sounds like, yeah.